Hi, this is Jill Ike, and for my Session 5 assignment, I will be doing a naturalistic observation or reflective presentation. For this, I did choose the naturalistic interview. My naturalistic interview consisted of an interview which took place in a restaurant with an adult female with a Christian worldview. After spending some time with her, I was able to learn that she grew up as the second oldest in a family of 5 children. The age difference from the youngest to the oldest in her family gave way for more of a motherly role in her life. This caused her responsibility level to be primary from a very young age. She was also married young, gave birth to 3 sons, and adopted a daughter. She did lose her daughter. She lost her mother, and she was faced with the sudden illness of her son. For this slide, I'll be talking about integrity versus despair. This is something that is discussed in Berger. Goes a little bit further and defines integrity as it is often used to mean honesty, but it also means a feeling of being whole, not scattered, or comfortable with oneself. If I was to recognize this in this person as far as integrity or despair, I would say that she definitely is a woman of integrity. I don't feel that there is any despair in her life, even after all the loss that she's faced. So I would say that it's easy to say that this individual is comfortable with herself, and although life has consisted of many painful events, she has been able to come to terms with them and has not allowed them to define her circumstance, but rather has chosen to find the lesson or the good in each of them. Her life has consisted of a lot of loss. She did lose the loss of a child, and the loss of a child is something that no parent wishes to identify with. Although for my individual, she was faced with it unexpectedly as she lost her daughter. Shortly after the loss of her daughter, she was again unexpectedly faced with her mother passing away. Both of these losses came out of nowhere and happened quickly with little to no warning. I think the biggest loss in her life would be that which I consider an unexpected loss. Within a year after the passing of her daughter and her mother, some would argue that this would be the most difficult loss of all for her. Her son, was diagnosed with a mental illness that would steal his mind, his freedom, and many of his characteristics away. This is a loss that many of us can definitely not understand because it comes out of nowhere, like a thief in the night, forever changing his life and that of his parents. A quote that I found in a book called Grief Experiences of Parents Whose Children Suffer from Mental Illness states, "The onset of a mental illness is associated with a great deal of emotional distress and a life disruption for the identified sufferer and the family." Continues on to say, "Grief appears to be more normal and adaptive response in a family members to the myriad of perceived losses arising from the nature of the illness, the disability it causes, and the negative impact it has on the family process and resources." I felt that this was extremely fitting for this evaluation because for them it was a huge loss, and there was much grief that she actually dealt with in response to this. As I mentioned earlier, her son was no longer the same. He lost a lot of his characteristics and personality, is fully reliant on them now, and she has become a full-time caretaker for him. So there's so much that is engulfed with that I feel that unexpected loss is one of those things where we don't necessarily deal with the person being gone, but in so many ways we have lost them and they're just no longer with us. So for her, this was something that I think has been more defining to her personal life or worldview altogether. Her religion is something that I would define as Christianity. From an early age, this individual has had a relationship with Christ. From the beginning of her marriage, God has been at the center and was foundational in teaching and the discipline and life of their children. And through the losses and tragedies, her reliance on Christ has been pivotal in coping and coming to terms with her circumstance. It is also evident to me that her faith and beliefs have allowed her to continue to serve, love, and share her testimony with others.